Well, this here is the Maruti Suzuki S-Presso, and this is proof enough that cheap can be cheerful as well. Now the starting price of this car is rupees 3.7 lakh rupees, ex-showroom, which is relatively affordable, and Maruti calls it the mini SUV in their stable. Now does it look like a mini SUV? You can let me know in the comments below. But what is mini SUV like about it is the ground clearance. Yes, this car has a ground clearance of 180 mm, which can shame a lot of other compact SUVs out there. But it's not only about the looks or the ground clearance, it's also about the drivability, the comfort, as well as the overall quality of this car. And the big question is that does this car make sense as your first ever car? And if you're planning to buy your first car, should you take a look at the S-Presso? I'll answer that question by the end of this review, so let's get started. Well, so the S-Presso might only be a compact car on the outside, but there's nothing compact about the boot because it is a decent boot. As you can see, I've loaded a couple of big bags over here, and this car can really take a little bit more. Now, if you have your mother-in-law coming in for, let's say, about a couple of weeks, and she brings along 2 big bags with her, then this car will easily accommodate those big bags. And also, if you plan to go for maybe a weekend trip with your entire family to the hills, then this car's boot is more than sufficient on handling that luggage. And for those big bazaar trips, it's more than sufficient to carry your month's ration in the boot. So overall, very impressive considering its relatively compact dimensions. On the outside, I'll give it a strong score of 9 out of 10. Well, because of the big and boxy shape on the outside, you get plenty of space on the inside. As you can see, headroom is more than sufficient, and my height for reference is 5'10", and as always, I will adjust the front seat for my height and my driving position. Handy room also is more than sufficient, and there's plenty of place below the front seats where I can stretch my feet because Maruti Suzuki have raised up the front seats. So in terms of space, this car is a no compromise car. You get loads of space inside the cabin. There's a bit of a hump in the floor panel, but it's not too much. You can accommodate 3, but yes, 2 will be better, but 3 can squeeze in for those short seat trips. The good point is that the windows go all the way down, and another good point is that the doors open nice and wide and the entry aperture is rather good. So if you have older folks at home, getting them inside the car and asking them to leave will be easy because the seats also are high set. So you just walk in this car and settle in rather than crouching in that, hatchback. Well, the cool and funky theme continues inside the cabin, and this car gets this huge circular theme inside the cabin, and this of course houses the gauges. The gauges are placed here in the middle, so everyone inside the car can have a look at the speed that you're doing. And some of you might say, well, isn't that not so good, because if they're here, you can always look down like this. But no, to be honest, the speed gauge or the speedometer really is huge, and it's a digital display, so you can easily look at it, and all you have to do is just do this. In terms of utility, it's a nice car to be in because you get a couple of beverage holders here. There's a big tray ahead of them, and there's a huge tray over here just above the glove box. The glove box also is of a decent shape and size, and the door bins are large enough to house those big bottles. The best part about the car, of course, is that you get high set seats just like an SUV, so you can easily look at the edges of the bonnet and you know exactly how far your car is from the car up ahead, which means that this is a great car for anyone who's driving his first car or who's buying his first car. It's a great car if you're planning to buy your first car in the market. So overall, I think I'm pretty impressed with this cabin. The seats also are very good in terms of comfort. The quality is at par with its other rivals. In fact, for this price point, this is definitely ahead of its main rival, the Renault Kwid. I'll give this car's cabin a very strong score of 8.5 out of 10. Well, so if you're looking for your first ever car and practically a car which you want to drive in the city on a daily basis, then I have good news for you. That is that this is a very good car to drive in the city. The steering wheel is ultra light, so it doesn't take too much effort, and the seat is high set, so you can see all the corners, all the edges of the car, so you know exactly how far your car is from the one ahead of you. That is something which is on the mind of a lot of people who drive for the first time. And the manual gearbox on the car is very light to use. The clutch also is very light to use, and you also get excellent visibility all across. So what I'm essentially trying to say is that this is a good car in terms of the light controls, excellent visibility, as well as the peppy engine for people who want to buy their first car and are driving their car for the very first time. Now remember, this car comes with that 1-liter engine which you also find on the WagonR as well as the Alto K10, And this engine makes about 68 bhp of power, and it is a very peppy engine. It loves to rev, and it's also very responsive. It starts responding from a relatively low RPM of about 1100, 1200 RPM, which makes it very nice to drive in the city. And as I just said, the controls are also very light, which makes it a nice car to drive around town. Now, a lot of other car reviewers will tell you that the steering wheel lacks feedback, it doesn't feel very feelsome, this, that, and everything. But to be honest, people who are buying these kind of cars are buying them for their hassle-free nature and are buying them for the ease of operation. And in those two departments, the S-Presso really does excel and really does come out on top. And it is a car which really is a completely hassle-free car to drive in the city. Now, talking about hassle-free, you also get an automatic gearbox option on this, along with the 5-speed manual, and that's an AMT version, but it doesn't feel like an AMT, and I'm saying this in the nicest sense of the word. It feels like a regular automatic gearbox, because Maruti, with each passing car, with each new AMT car, are really improving the AMT technology that they have. And the car doesn't lurch forward or backwards, it doesn't jolt you. Yes, there of course is that visible change of gear, upshift or downshift. It doesn't lurch you up and down like the earlier versions of the AMT cars did. So in that sense, Maruti has really improved this technology with the AMT gearbox, and I think Maruti's AMT gearboxes are the best on any car in this segment, and at this price point they're much better than most of its other rivals. Now, in terms of the ride comfort at slow city speeds, this car will deal well with most of the potholes and all those bumpy patches. But remember, it is a car with a very compact wheelbase, so some of those sharp crevices will definitely enter the cabin and might be felt inside the cabin, but it's never uncomfortable, and this car deals with those bumps and potholes quite well. On the highway, stability is decent if you keep it within acceptable speed limit. If you are in the market for your first ever car and want something which offers you the high set seats of an SUV, the ground clearance of an SUV, but still want something which is affordable, something which will not burn a hole in your pocket because it gives good fuel efficiency, and something which will drive as easily as a hatchback, then the S-Presso is a good choice. So in fact, if you're in the market for your first ever car and want something different from that boring hatchback, then this car really is a car you should look at your nearest Maruti Suzuki Arena Network dealership. And I'm very impressed with it overall. I'll give it a strong score of 90 out of 100. It's bye for now, and thanks for watching.